The need to protect shareholders is what the CEO of one bank known as SoFi cited as his reasons for suing the Biden administration over its pause on student loan repayments. Now, the pause on student loan repayments began under the Trump administration, and of course, it was a response to the coronavirus pandemic. People were laid off. I mean, tens of millions of people were laid off through no fault of their own, and because of the financial hardship that Americans were facing, the federal government said, listen, we're gonna help you out. You don't have to worry about paying back your student loans. We're gonna put a pause on that. And in fact, we're not going to allow for these federal student loans to continue accumulating interest during this time. Now, SoFi, again, a bank, was not so happy about that, because they happened to make, especially at that time, the bulk of their profits through refinancing federal student loans. So if you have a federal student loan and you happen to have excellent credit, SoFi would be able, in some cases, to refinance that loan for a lower interest rate, and that's how they were able to make their money. When you essentially set the student loan interest rate at 0, and let students know that they do not have to repay their student loans for a limited period of time, well, then they're less likely to look for refinancing opportunities, and that's where SoFi has gotten incredibly salty about this. The pause on federal student loan payments, interest and collections, which began in March of 2020, has cost SoFi between $300 and $400 million in revenue and between 150 million and 200 million in profits. And that's according to the company's legal filings. It's according to their lawsuit. So how exactly did they lose money on student loans, federal student loans? Well, the company, again, made most of their money at the time. This is before they had started giving out loans and making money in other ways. Now they have checkings accounts. Back then, it was mostly focused on refinancing, and that's how they made most of their money. During the payment pause, the rate on federal student loans has been set at 0%. As a result, the moratorium has eliminated the primary benefits of student loan refinancing, the company wrote in its complaint. Now, in other words, they preyed off of desperate students who were just struggling with student loan debt, looking for lower interest rates. That is how they made their money. That is how their shareholders were rewarded. So that is what they're looking to protect, or at least go back to. Now, the idea that you can get a lower interest rate through refinancing with a private bank sounds laughable, but what SoFi would do is it would only focus on refinancing the loans of student borrowers who had excellent credit and weren't rich yet per se, but were high enough earners to justify providing an interest rate that's lower than what federal student loans offer. And I wanna also note, federal student loans typically come with a relatively low interest rate. But SoFi was able to beat the federal loan interest rate in some cases because they were only dealing with borrowers who had excellent credit and high income. Now, Anthony Noto, who is the head of SoFi Bank, he's the CEO, says that he doesn't mind Joe Biden's student debt relief because it's means tested. Noto noted that the company supports the forgiveness initiative, which is limited to borrowers earning less than $125,000. The income cap means that some potential SoFi customers may not even qualify for the plan. And for those that do, the forgiveness likely won't wipe out their whole loan balance. So understand the admission he's saying there, right? He's like, yeah, since it's so heavily means tested, we're actually not concerned with Biden's student loan debt forgiveness plan, but we are concerned that the repayment pause continues and we want to end it, which is why they did the lawsuit. Okay, so the thing that I want you guys to take away from this story that's super relevant is that when it comes to student loan debt, there are so many entities, there are so many players that make money off of federal student loans, okay? You have banks that make money off of it, right? In this case, banks looking to refinance those loans and essentially make profits through the interest that they attached to those refinance loans. You also have student debt servicers who make money off those loans. And you also have the federal government, by the way, which also charges interest and makes money off of federal student loans. In fact, Noto mentioned that during a recent interview with Yahoo Finance. Let's watch.
There's currently a debt ceiling issue that's coming. If they just eliminated the moratorium on student loan payments, they'd recoup $5 billion of tax revenue on a monthly basis, which could help fund some of that debt with better servicing.
I mean, the federal government could be making that debt ceiling fight, it's coming up. It's coming up. I mean, if the Biden administration wants to provide an example of what they can do to generate revenue, force these students to repay their student loan debt. And when you have all of these different entities involved, when you have this profit motive attached to federal student loans, then of course there's gonna be an orchestrated effort to block or reverse anything that the Biden administration or anything any administration might want to do to provide relief to student borrowers. Which is why, while I guess I commend the Biden administration for wanting to do something to help alleviate what student borrowers are going through, it was really a Band-Aid to a much larger problem. There needs to be a much larger solution, including providing education that is so attainable, so affordable, maybe even free, to the point where people don't have to dig themselves into massive debt in order to get an education, right? Now, higher education isn't for everyone. Some people might do better in a trade school, vocational school, I get that, okay? But at the same time, for people who want to go to college, they shouldn't have to be drowning in debt in order to get a degree. And if you just decide that you'll deal with the debt issue with some Band-Aid policy after the fact, it's not really gonna solve the problem, because you have all these moneyed interests that are preying on these student borrowers, making money off of these student borrowers. So you could just deal with the root of the problem, which is students having to be borrowers in the first place. That doesn't mean you get rid of tuition at private colleges and universities, but shouldn't public colleges and universities be, open and free to the public? Shouldn't they be funded to the point where people don't have to take out student loans in order to get an education? I mean, there was a time in America when community colleges were free, when public universities were incredibly affordable, but we have moved further and further away from that. And as higher education becomes less attainable, more expensive, all we hear from the party that's supposed to represent the average American, the average worker, is, hey, we got a Band-Aid for you, but it's gonna be so means tested that the CEO of a bank is okay with it. He's okay with it, because God forbid we upset bank CEOs. So that's the situation that we're dealing with. If you're wondering why it is that it's so difficult to cancel student loan debt, it's because the vultures are preying on those borrowers. They're making money off of them, and we gotta root that part of this system out entirely in order to actually fix the student loan issue. Otherwise, we're just kicking the can down the road with more Band-Aids.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.